In our last video, we imagined what Alberta would look like if it was its own nation. But now let's think of two provinces joining forces to become a new nation. Imagine an independent West Prairie Nation formed by the union of Alberta and Saskatchewan, emerging as a powerhouse of resources, innovation, and prosperity. Together, the two provinces span roughly 1 million square kilometers of land, twice the size of France, stretching from the Rocky Mountains in Alberta across the plains and boreal forests into Saskatchewan's agricultural heartland. As a single sovereign state, this country would inherit a combined population of about 7 million people, making it comparable in size to Norway or New Zealand in demographic terms. Economically, the West Prairie Nation would boast a nominal GDP of approximately $545 billion, placing it around 45th to 50th of the largest economies globally. On a per capita basis, that works out to roughly $89,000 per person, among the very highest levels worldwide, just behind Switzerland and ahead of Australia. Converted to US dollars at an exchange rate of 0.74 currently, total output would be about $403 billion, with GDP per capita of about $65,700. This would situate the West Prairie Nation's aggregate economy between Finland and Denmark, while its per-person productivity rivals the richest oil exporting states and advanced European economies. The resource base of this new country would be unmatched. Alberta contributes the world's third largest oil reserves and is a global leader in natural gas, while Saskatchewan holds vast deposits of potash used in fertilizers and the world's largest recoverable uranium deposits, underpinning nuclear power. Combined agricultural output would surge. Alberta's beef and grain production, coupled with Saskatchewan's status of one of the world's top exporters of wheat, canola, and pulse crops. Forest products from Alberta's boreal zone and minerals like coal, gypsum, and sodium sulfate from Saskatchewan would add further depth. Tourism would thrive on the Rockies, boreal parks, and the historical trails of the plains. On the fiscal side, provincial revenues would grow in scale. Today, Alberta generates about $74 billion in taxation and royalties, and Saskatchewan generates about $15 billion, for a total of about $90 billion. Oil royalties alone could make up $7 to $8 billion, with potash royalties and mining taxes adding another $4 to $5 billion. A united government could establish a sovereign wealth fund, kind of like what Norway does, funneling a percentage of resource revenues into long-term savings to stabilize the budget against price swings. Initial rainy day reserves of $5 billion could be scaled up to $20 to $30 billion within a decade of saving. Trade relationships could be dominated by the United States, which currently absorbs about 80 to 85% of all energy exports and about half of Saskatchewan's agricultural shipments. Sustaining and deepening free trade ties with bilateral agreements could be crucial for tariff-free access to U.S. markets. To diversify, a nation could leverage Western Canada's ports in British Columbia or even in Alaska's tidewater, promoting exports to Asia-Pacific customers, adding value through petrochemical processing plants and agro-industrial complexes on the prairies. A central bank would need to be established, issuing a prairie dollar, initially pegging to a trade-weighted balance of currencies, perhaps the US dollar, euro, and yen, or even a commodity index reflecting oil, potash, and wheat. Public services would need to be reconfigured to reflect a sovereign state. There would be a combination of healthcare and education budgets from both provinces. Pensions would transition from the Canada Pension Plan to a new Prairie Pension Plan, funded by payroll contributions and investment in a diversified fund. When compared to peer nations, The West Prairie Nation's profile is striking. Its GDP of $403 billion would be similar to Finland and Portugal, but its per capita income of $65,700 would outstrip both, placing it alongside Ireland and the Netherlands. Human Development Index matrix, currently 0.955 in Alberta and 0.929 in Saskatchewan, would combine into a ranking around 7th or 8th globally, on par with Belgium, Sweden, and Ireland, reflecting strong health, education, and income standards. New government could benefit by channeling sovereign funds returning into social housing, Indigenous partnership programs, and rural broadband expansion, helping to close remaining gaps in opportunity across the vast territories. Challenges would include managing the volatility of oil prices, cushioning agriculture against drought or global crop swings, and navigating environmental obligations under international frameworks. Defense and diplomacy would require creation of an armed force, embassies, and consular networks, like starting with transitional agreements with Canada and NATO partners. A robust environmental agency would be tasked with balancing resource development and habitat conservation on sensitive landscapes, like the Eastern Slopes or the boreal wetlands. In sum, an independent nation formed by Alberta and Saskatchewan would emerge as a mid-sized, high-income country, rich in hydrocarbons, minerals, and agriculture bounty. With a combined GDP of about $544 billion and a per capita output approaching $89,000, it would rank in the top tier of global prosperity. Its sovereign wealth fund, prudent monetary policy, and diversified trade orientation would be key to weathering commodity cycles. This detailed exploration spanning geography, economy, institutions, and societal considerations paints a vivid portrait of the West Prairie Nation stepping onto the world stage. Without transfer payments going to other provinces, both Alberta and Saskatchewan could use that to beef up their own nation and their own social structure. In the next video on this series, we're going to examine what if British Columbia joined Saskatchewan and Alberta as a separate nation. And if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and we'd love to hear from you. What do you think an independent Alberta and Saskatchewan would look like? Thank you so much, and have a great day.